Keith, you've come in today to discuss domestic abuse in relationships. Am I correct in saying?
That's right, yes.
So, in your opinion, were you ever convicted of domestic abuse?
Yes.
And, I tried that one of my colleagues.
Is there any excuse for what you did?
There's no excuse. There are reasons why, which I will explain, happy to explain to you why what I did. There's no excuses for it, but we are all humans and we all have, regardless of our status, a weak point. A point where we can tolerate no more abuse ourselves and we retaliate. My abuse that I subjected to my now ex-wife was in retaliation to the abuse that I suffered from my ex-wife. In my circumstances, I was emotionally abused by my now ex-wife, and I find that emotional abuse is equally as damaging, or if not more damaging, than some forms of physical abuse. Physical abuse, to a degree, can be short and sharp, like that's physical abuse. Emotional abuse is internal. You can't see it, and it affects anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, race, colour, creed. And anybody can inflict that on anybody else regardless of their size. And I was subjected to that for over 2 years without retaliation to my wife. And within that time, I suppose my barriers were broken down bit by bit with the negative verbals of abuse that I was subjected to without cause for retaliating back. But at that point, when the incident happened, I probably wasn't in control of my situation because I wasn't strong enough to walk away. Whereas before, yeah, I walked away, I've done this, I've done that. And that night when we had an argument, the words that she used towards me and my family were very, very hurtful. And in my retaliation, I knocked over an instrument, which was a clothes area you put your clothes on. My wife subjected a mark on her arm because it fell on her, which caused a bruise. That's common assault by beating. That was it. I never touched my wife, I never struck my wife, I never hit her with an object. I also tried to defend myself when my wife tried to stab me with some scissors. Because I didn't sustain the mark, and my wife did, I can't prove that she tried to stab me, but she can prove that she sustained the mark, which I was arrested for and subsequently charged with common assault by beating, to which I pleaded guilty to. That's my abuse towards my wife.
Do you feel that after people know your story, they stereotype? Does they judge you before they actually know the full story? If they hear the words domestic abuse, they put you into a certain...
Of course, regardless of what it is, because it's just a statement, domestic abuse, which could mean a whole range of things. And on my DBS, it just says common assault by beating. Now that word beating is a very disgusting word. And without hearing my story, if I tell you I was charged with beating somebody, most people, I presume, would think I've actually hit somebody with an instrument or I've beat them in a certain way that caused them severe harm. Not at all, but because, like I said, the eyes of the law is any kind of mark on anyone's person, that is classed as beating. But that itself would stray people away from me. It's caused me a lot of distress, so much so the reason, which is quite ironic how I'm here today, is because the situation happened over a year ago. I lost my career, lost my home, I lost so much over. I'm not going to undermine what happened, but in comparison to other crimes of murder, child abuse, theft, robbery, all those kinds of things, I feel like I'm in the same bracket because nobody will give me a second chance. I actually got a job and I started, this is the shortest job I've ever had, 3.5 days. 3.5 days, because today when I took my DBS, which is my bar and disclosure certificate in to see show my line manager, they were not aware of my conviction and then instantly terminated me. Just like that. And I've had 25 years of absolute high quality service working with children and vulnerable people. I was cleared by Ofsted, I was cleared by the bar and disclosure people. They will give me a second chance. I put my hand up in court, I paid my fine, I've kept my nose clean, but now trying to survive, provide food and shelter for my children, I can't do that now because society is now punishing me. So what do I do?
How do you feel now that this has happened, like in situations like that, what do you think you would do instead of, like, I don't know how to explain it, but do you feel like you could just, like, if you felt like you was in a situation, would you just walk away now instead of?
Of course, definitely so. I mean, I did that several times, and this is why, one reason why I'm here today, you can ask me any questions you like and I'll answer them honestly, is I would, if I can prevent this from happening to anybody else, male or female, then so be it. If I've got to open up myself and to you guys and state that yes, you should walk away. And I did do that, being I'm a person that worked with perpetrators and abusers of domestic violence, one would think you should know better. Which technically yes, but I go back to the point where we all bleed, we all cry and we all suffer pain. And even though so, what happened to me was in my home. When you go to work, it's a different ballgame because you can always turn around and walk away. You get support, you get line managers, you get all these kind of people. When you go back to your safe haven, which is your home, and you're persecuted, not just once, but continuously, and you're isolated. No disrespect to females, but there's so much support for women. It shouldn't happen to women, of course it shouldn't. And the statistics outweigh women that abuse more than men. Don't get me wrong. But where is the actual support? And I'm talking support, actual support for men. Because the image that we're given from when we're young is men are strong, men are tough, men don't cry. And if you see a boy crying, toughen up, what are you crying about? You know, if I've been out with friends and I said, oh, my wife was giving me grief tonight, oh yeah, don't talk about that. Unless I've got a black eye or physical, you know, something to say that this is what she's done to me, they're not going to be interested. I rang up, when I was being abused by my wife, I rang up certain places, and because it wasn't physical, how do you prove emotional abuse as a man? If I was being harmed by my wife, where's the men's refuges? Where is actual proper? If you go on the internet, you'll see loads of things for women. Shelters, sports centres, you name it, all this money's thrown into women, and there's not as much thrown into men because as far as they're concerned, well, it's only about 2% or 5%, so, you know, and that's just half the problem. Men don't know how to deal with certain things to a degree because we're raised to be strong, don't cry, but we are emotional people. Well, I'm an emotional person. I went to Relate, I went to marriage guidance, I even left the home for a month, and with my son, who's not her son, who's my son, I slept with my son at people's houses, on settees, whatever. Left the home because of the situation. And full situation, yeah, okay, I'll get help, I'll get support. So I went back home. Once I'm back in that door, started again. And who do you turn to? My only safe haven was my work, funnily enough. But yes, in hindsight, I've walked away many times. I've done so many things to try and get her help and get support and think, you know what, yeah, I'll walk away. And I'd rather be, you're stronger to be a stronger person when you walk away, but how many times do you keep walking away? That's my point. I walked away for 2 years, but I still had to go back. People say, why did you just leave? Well, when you set up home and you have certain investments, you have children, things like that, it's not just as easy. As a man, you go to the YMCA, which you may have heard of. I can go to the YMCA, but you can't take your children to the YMCA. So what would I do with my biological child? Where would he stay overnight? All these things, and many more things that I promote to people, is what was going through my mind at the time. To the point where, like I said, my wife just broke me down, and like I said, I regret what happened, of course I do. But it's affecting me now, and it affects me for the rest of my life. And the only thing I can do is try and spread the word and let people know what happened to me was wrong. I did a bad thing. I'm not going to say I didn't. But it wasn't. I don't say a classic case. I didn't wake up in the morning and think, well, there's no tea, or where's my toast? I'm going to hit my wife, or that kind of typical stereotype male abuser. It wasn't like that at all. And the same thing happens to females, I might say, because there are women that are emotionally abused because again you can't see the signs, by male perpetrators, and they retaliate. They may have a sword put in their hand, they may have a knife in their hand or something, and just turn around and say, I've had enough, and their husband's on the floor with a stab wound. Please come in. Hang on a minute. Where's her wound? Then she, the victim, becomes a perpetrator. So it swings both ways. But I can only talk from my experience that I'm not a perpetrator of domestic domestic abuse. I'm a victim and a perpetrator because I suffered it, and I suppose, as the judge said, in my moment of madness, I retaliated, and now I have to pay the price for it, not just through the courts, and it should be just through the courts. You might as well just give me a prison sentence. I might as well still be in prison now, because all I'm trying to do is survive. I've made a mistake. In certain ways I should have paid my price to society by being punished by the courts, and if that were the case, I'd be a very happy man. But even now, nearly a year and a half, I get a job, as soon as I find I got a conviction, get sacked straight away. I've been in a job 3 days. So what do I go home and tell my son now that I haven't got a job, and now I have to go and look for another job? And this affects society as well. So, I urge anybody that there is support out there, is trying to find the right support. Mighty Men of Valor have been fantastic, and they've supported me, and I'm also working with them also. But we need more. We need more support. We're not asking more than females, but if you try and give males some kind of support before, maybe they won't end up perpetrating. Men lash out for all kinds of reasons. It's not the right thing, but sometimes when you're raising a child, men, boys, Power Rangers, fighting, girls, dolls, all the soft stuff, you're more than saying boys are supposed to be aggressive. But the emotional side of it is not discussed with men. And then when they do something wrong and they retaliate, like a man may get angry and punch his fist against the wall because he's frustrated. How else does he anger his frustration? I'm not saying it's right, but we're not given that opportunity from as young to be as open with our emotions and be supportive through that channel, that maybe men wouldn't probably lash out as much. But we've all got we've all got a biting point, we've all got a weak spot, and it's how we challenge it. And being a professional, I still made a mistake. And if I can make the mistake of being a professional, then other people can. But I'm paying a heavy, heavy price for it. Like I said, my career is basically in tatters. But what else can I do?
If someone was to ask you today, in this interview, for example, what your prevention would be, or what would you suggest to other men who are in a similar situation to you, what would you say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is to walk away from the situation, go back and address it another time. Depending on the situation, I always say walk away, don't have an argument when you're under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Try and seek some kind of support. If you've got a family network, try and go to another family member. If you've got a friend, a male friend or a female friend, try and remove yourself from there, and you have to search the internet, you have to sift through the websites to try and find some help and support. If you find me, I will give you all the help and support, because I've been there. I know what it's like, and that's just what I tell people. I wrote a book about my situation to hopefully spread the word that even someone like me can suffer in silence, which is what I did. So I will try and support that person as best I can. But the worst thing you can do is retaliate. I know and I'm not saying it's easier said than done, because many times when my wife was like this, and with someone like that, you think yourself, you're like, do you know what? Yeah, I turn around, and then you get all the words. I'm not going to use foul language in here. You're this, you're that, you know what? Still went out the door. But then you get the phone messages, you get the text messages, I'm ringing your mum, I'm telling this and that. Where'd you go? Your head's sort of spinning. You go away for a few days, you come back. And then it's calmed down, and then it starts off with something just over something simple. But yeah, that's what I will try and do. And only because I know what it's like and I've been there. And even if you've got to do it 50 times, 60 times, 70 times, walk away from a situation, which I did, but my 10th day, I knocked over a clothes area. So even though I did walk away, I knocked over an instrument, but because it struck my wife, that was my downfall.
For you personally, how has the matrimonial valor affected you for your life?
Well, I was working with matrimonial valor prior to the situation, and I was working with perpetrators and abusers of domestic abuse prior to the situation happened, because of my work of working with dads and male carers. And after the situation happened, Mighty Men of Valor actually supported me, and supported me knowing that what happened, not to say it wasn't me, because yes, obviously I did do it, but it wasn't, I'm not a bad person. So they gave me the opportunity to still continue my work and still believed in me to help and support people. I'm actually, so much so, through Mighty Men of Valor, I'm actually supporting a 12-year-old black youth who's got multiple sclerosis as a mentor. So through them, they give me the opportunity to still help support people. And that's what I want to do. That's why I'm sitting here, and that's what I still would like to do. But because of my conviction, certain people think I'm a liability. Certain people think I'm too much of a high risk now, because I'm going to go and maybe injure somebody because I had a minor altercation with my wife. Never mind of my 27 years, which is all accounted for in my work, not one blip in my work, but because of what happened, that's more important than actually thinking, oh, okay, well, he's done something wrong, but his track record is impeccable.
So do you personally feel that if people understood what happens behind closed doors, like emotional abuse to the situation, and not the physical side, but mostly emotional, because no one can actually understand it unless you've been through it like you have. I mean, do you think if society knew like what happened behind closed doors, they'd be more willing to give people like you a second chance?
Well, it's really strange, because when the situation happened, being I'm a male, a lot of my friends and associates, because I work in a female-oriented environment, a lot of childminders, teachers, and other female professionals were quite shocked what happened, because it was in the newspapers and everything else. Could not believe, did you actually do this? I didn't do what the press said I did, because as you know, the press twists and whatever. But those people who actually knew me and actually wanted to actually ask me a question as you are, and I will honestly answer you, realised this is not the situation. And a lot of these people who are professionals said, is that all you did? I've always hit my husband. I've thrown shoes at him, I've done this, that and the other, and these are females talking to men. So it was quite strange that I got lots of support from females, bearing in mind I've just been not found guilty, I just pleaded guilty to assaulting a female, if you know what I mean. So it was so nice to get that kind of support from females, and I set up a website, Suffer in Silence, and I've got a lot of feedback from females who they've said to themselves, you know, I don't, it's not right, but I'm always clapping my husband around the ear. That's actually common assault. But indoors doesn't, you know, we all do it, behave yourself, whatever, you know, but to me, it just happened. But I feel that there needs to be a bit more education, and also not the media, TV has got a lot to play, because there's still, I don't know about the same programs, you'll probably cut it out, but things like EastEnders, not just that, in Croatia Street, you still see females hitting males, and it's fine. Like, you know, if the bloke was cheating on the wife, for example,